Welcome to Bibliophiles Anonymous, episode 57. I'm Denise.
And I'm Jess.
And today we're going to talk about a very important topic, one that I think we've mentioned briefly in the past, but I think it's something bearing repeating, especially given some of the latest things that have been going on with Veronica Roth and the release of her latest book, Allegiant, which is the final book in the Divergent trilogy. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, not about the book itself so much, because I know, Jess, you haven't read them yet.
No.
I have. I've read Allegiant, and it's we're not, like I said, we're not going to talk about so much about the book, but we're talking more about the reactions of books and kind of the relationship between the book and the reader and the author, because there's a lot of people out there who are not treating that relationship the way they should be.
They are overstepping boundaries.
They're pretending boundaries aren't there.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously. But before we get into that, one quick announcement. There will be no show next week. And it's my fault.
Well, not entirely your fault. Between, your stuff going on and my work schedule.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
Because I have a concert coming up next week, which means the week leading up to a concert they always pack in extra rehearsals, so I'm going to be gone most of the week for that, and then next weekend, I'm really excited because I'm going to Y'all Fest in Charleston, South Carolina, and I might get to meet some authors and stuff, so I'm kind of excited about that.
Yeah,
so,
you suck.
I'm sorry. Actually, no, I'm not, but...
See, we don't have anything cool like that.
Well, we don't get that kind of cool stuff here all the time. I mean, this is the first time I've ever heard of this one. I don't know how many years they've been doing it, but a good friend of mine from high school recently moved back into the area. She's been living kind of all over the place while her husband was in medical school. Yeah. But now she's back, and she just lives an hour or so away from me, and she is also a writer and a book enthusiast. And she was like, I'm going, are you going to go? And I was thinking about it, but I hadn't made any really strong decisions. And so she was kind of saying, oh, come on, you want to do it, and then I can go down with you, and we can, split the hotel costs and the gas costs and all that stuff. So I'm like, yeah, okay, that'll work. I have to try, and I'm going to be exhausted because I'm going to have a concert right before that, and then leaving like really early in the morning the following morning, which means I'm probably going to be existing on about 4 hours of sleep.
That's never fun.
Well, maybe she'll drive most of the way and I'll sleep in the car. But anyway, so yeah, just due to a whole bunch of stuff going on, we will not have an episode next week. But we will be back the week after, and I believe we're probably going to be talking about The Girl in the Steel Corset by Katie Cross.
Yes.
Because I am reading that one now.
I am too. I'm about halfway through it.
I have no idea. I'm not there. I'm probably maybe a quarter. So that'll give me more time to finish it anyway.
So have we got to the point where you know who Finley is now?
No.
Or who her father was?
Okay, I know who her father is, yeah.
Yeah, that kind of threw me. I was like, well.
Well, I mean, well, now I'm not sure if I'm quite where you're talking about. Well, we'll figure that out.
Yeah.
I'm getting there. I like it so far.
Yeah. It gets more interesting.
Okay. I will take your word for it, and I'll probably read some more of it later. Other than that, is there anything else you're reading right now?
Well, according to Goodreads, I'm reading 7 other things, but we all know how that goes.
What are you actually reading right now?
The Girl in the Steel Corset.
Yeah.
That's the one I'm actively...
Did I even add that one to my Goodreads? I may not have.
That's the one I'm actually actively reading at this point, which is really cool because where I'm at, I finally got to where the steel corset comes in.
Oh, I haven't gotten there.
No, that's about halfway into the book, and I'm like, really, all of this, and we still don't know? Oh, there it is. But yeah, it's a very steampunky thing.
Yeah, it's really interesting with all the automatons and the kind of half human, half metal people kind of thing, and
yeah,
Yeah, it's interesting, and I like it so far. So we'll talk about that on our next episode, not next week, but the week after.
Yes.
And I'm not really reading anything else. I'm sort of reading a couple of other things, but I mentioned them last week, and I'm not really focusing on them at the moment. So, oh well.
That's pretty much the only one I'm actively reading at the moment. At some point, I actually need to, finish all that other stuff and get it off of there.
Yeah. I have four things I'm currently reading right now. One of them is a writing book. I think I've mentioned it before. It's called The Fire in Fiction, and I'm not really actively reading it because I haven't been writing that much lately. So, speaking of writing, happy NaNoWriMo to anybody listening who is participating. I'm not, but I know a lot of people are. So good luck. You just started. Try and stay focused and all that. Don't fall behind early, because that's what always killed me.
Yeah, I tried a couple of times and didn't work so much for me. So
It's hard. It's a commitment. It's really not easy.
no.
The closest I've gotten, and anybody who doesn't know what this is, I can't imagine anybody who would listen to our podcast not knowing what Nano is, but it's National Novel Writing Month, happens every November, and the goal is to write 50,000 words in 30 days. I have made it to, I think, 32,000, which was actually pretty good, but have I ever done anything with that stuff? No, because it was crap.
It usually is, because the whole point is to just get the words on paper and not worry about grammar or the way it flows or anything, because that is for the editing process.
Right. This is just to get the words out of your head and onto the page so that you have something to work with instead of just leaving it in your head where you don't ever do anything with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Their focus is quantity, not quality.
Yes. You can worry about quality later.
Which they say that editing yourself as you write is the worst thing you can do anyway.
Right.
But I'm guilty of that when I write.
Oh, I am too. It's hard not to.
Yeah, because it's like, I don't like that. I'm going to fix it.
Mm-hmm. But, so anyway, yeah, I just, not that we're doing anything with it, and not really that it relates to this podcast, but I know that probably several people who listen to us are also doing that. So, good luck. Stay focused, and hope you make it.
Yep.
So there you go. All right, moving on to our topic for tonight. The thing that inspired this topic, well, actually, for me, it was two things. One was a blog post that I found that actually I think was posted it was earlier this year. Never mind. I thought it was last year, but that's because it's almost the end of the year. That's probably why. But then the same topic kind of came up again this past week. And for anybody who hasn't read this particular series that we're going to start off talking about, we're not really going to talk about plot points or any kind of spoilers or anything like that, because I know there's a lot of people that still haven't read the final book. So, and besides that, Jess, you haven't read any of them. And you should, actually. They're pretty good.
They're on that list of things
yeah.
one day that,
That wonderful list.
If my lifespan allows it, I should say.
Right. So this is the Divergent trilogy by Veronica Roth, and the final book in the series is called Allegiant, and it just came out, I believe it was last week. And as you can imagine, whenever you have a trilogy that gets really, really popular, the final book, there's so much leading up to it, and there's so many high expectations, and everybody's really excited, and they want to get their hands on it as quickly as possible. So there was a lot of hype leading up to this, and to be completely honest, I cannot even remotely fathom what it's like to have that much expectation and responsibility.
Yeah.
Especially since I did not know this, Veronica is 25 years old.
Holy crap!
She was 21 when Divergent was published. Ding dang.
She's younger than us.
Yeah.
And
So
look what she's accomplished. It makes me feel,
yeah, I know. I feel the same way. But anyway, besides that, we're gonna kind of, we'll nurse our wounds about that later. But so there was a lot of leading up to this final book. And for anybody who hasn't read this series, just to give you a little bit of an idea, it's very young adult dystopian. It's got a very similar feel to the Hunger Games trilogy. And there are a couple of similarities. I mean, you have a female main character who's kind of a badass, fighting to help her people from oppression. I mean, those are all kind of, except for the female protagonist necessarily, but a lot of the same tropes and themes that you get with dystopian stuff. But it does have a very similar feel to the Hunger Games, which is probably why I liked it, because, I like the Hunger Games. And the characters are really interesting, the world is really interesting, and as I said, it's a very popular series, and the final book finally came out. And basically what happened was the internet decided to act insane. There was some very, very bad behavior.
Yes.
And a lot of people did not like the third book. They didn't like it at all. They were really upset about the things that happened. They were upset about a particular character death. That's all I'm going to say. There is a character death that's kind of like, whoa, okay. But they were really upset about the ending. A lot of people didn't. Now, there are a lot of people who liked it. Or, I mean, it's hard to say liked it, because it's not a happily ever after kind of deal. There's a lot of bad stuff that goes down, and there's a lot of ways that some of the characters are not able to completely recover from it.
Right.
As is normal for dystopian type stuff. It's like you don't complete the main thing, overthrow the whoever, and then everything's perfect again.
No, it's not rainbows and unicorns.
No. It's called dystopian for a reason. But anyway, so the ending in particular really upset some people. A lot of people. And to the point where certain folks were actually threatening the author. There were several people. One person I know, I don't know where all of the reactions, I know a lot of it happened on Twitter. Some of it happened, I think, on her website, and I don't know how many emails and other types of communication she got that we didn't see. But one person I know said that if they saw her walking down the street, they'd walk up to her and punch her in the face.
Yeah, that's a little,
Somebody said, I've never actually seen, I tried to figure out who said it or where it was, but either it's been taken down or I just didn't find it, but there was somebody who mentioned that there's been death threats and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's one thing, and there's a very strong connection that you feel and this relationship that you get between the person reading the book itself, and the author. And it kind of, this whole issue, and I mean, I've been watching some of it, and I feel so bad for this girl.
Yeah.
Because all she's doing is writing the story that she wants to tell. And, writing a book is really, really hard. Never mind writing 3 books that are really, really good and have become successful. I mean, how often does that happen? Not very. So she's been putting a lot of hard work and a lot of thought into this, and now she's getting all of this, violent negativity thrown right in her face, practically. And I am completely okay if you read Allegiant and you're like, oh gosh, I just I didn't like that at all. That was horrible. That
Yeah.
is that is 100% within your rights.
Yeah.
And
Entitled to an opinion.
and to be completely honest, while I liked Allegiant, I thought that it was probably the weakest book in the series. And that happens sometimes when you're writing, and a lot of it has to do with that expectation and the added stress. I thought the first book was the strongest. And then the second one was good, not quite as good, but it was good. And then the third one was, a little bit further down that. Again, I think that that's normal sometimes, especially once all of the pressure starts adding to it. Because, when she wrote Divergent, nobody knew who she was, so
Right.
who cared? it's and it's so hard for me to understand why anybody thinks that attacking the author personally has anything to do with her and her book.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That comes back to the whole boundaries thing. If you read a book and you don't like it, then you have a right to express that opinion. Post a blog, write about it on Facebook, tweet about it. You have the right to express that opinion. Even if you want to tweet at the author and say, hey, I wasn't as crazy about this last book as I was your other two. That is within that's still within acceptable limits. But when it gets to the point that you are physically threatening or saying that if, you saw her, well, that's still physically saying if you saw her on the street, you would walk up and punch her, or making death threats, that's going too far.
Right. And because for me, I liken it to this. I think we both know, and our listeners know, that I was not a big fan of The Magicians by Lev Grossman. There were a lot of things about those books that book, I haven't read the other one yet, that absolutely drove me up the wall. There were a lot of things that just made me want to throw the book across the room and say, oh, that guy is such an idiot. The character, not the author.
Right.
The character of Quentin, who I still don't like.
Well, I'm right there with you on that one.
But that doesn't, number one, that does not mean that Lev Grossman is not a talented writer. Because he is. The rest of the book, if we could get rid of Quentin, the rest of the book's great.
Well, like I said, if somebody had thrown Quentin off a cliff somewhere around the beginning of the book, it would have been much better.
Yeah, the rest of the book, the story world, all of that stuff was really good. It was really just that character that drove me crazy. So he's obviously a talented writer. So I would never say that he was like a hack or something like that.
I'm saying throw the character off the cliff, not throw the author off the cliff.
Yeah. Yeah. And exactly. Just because I personally didn't care for this book doesn't mean that the author is a bad person who should be shunned or, worse. It's there has to be that separation of that. Okay, I didn't like The Magicians. I'm probably still going to read The Magician King just because I want to see where this goes, and maybe Quentin will get better. I don't know. But I'm a little bit curious. So, I'm going to read it just because. And, but even if I didn't decide to read the next book, okay, I didn't like the book. You know what? I don't have to read it again. Right. I can put it in the pile that is going to go over to the used bookstore, and I go my way, you go your way, namaste. That's it. And it's over. Yep. But this thing about going to the internet and just spewing out all of this hate and threats and everything else, I don't understand that. I don't get it.
I mean, yeah, like I said, sure, if you want to express your opinion that you didn't like the book, that's fine.
Yeah.
Even if you want to tell the author that you didn't like the book. Because, you know what? If you can do it in a mature fashion, the writers enjoy getting feedback on their work.
It's called constructive criticism.
Right. That's key, is being constructive about it.
Yeah,
saying, I didn't like your book for this reason. I think if you had done da-da-da-da-da, it would have been better. That's perfectly acceptable.
Yeah. I mean, I could write an email to Lev Grossman and say, okay, I read your book, The Magicians, and for the most part I enjoyed it, but I have to say that the The negativity, the constant negativity of the main character really pulled me out of the story world. And if there could have been some elements more where he seemed to appreciate some of the experiences he was going through, then maybe I would have been able to connect with him more. So maybe in the next book, that should be something to think about. Although the next book's already out, so there's nothing he can do about that one, but hey. But there's a big difference between saying that, I read this, and, this is how I felt, and thank you for writing it, whatever, than just saying, you suck and you should die. What? No, because that's the kind of stuff that Veronica Roth is getting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just because an author writes one book that you don't particularly care for doesn't mean that the next series or novel that they write you won't like.
Well, yeah, I've had several authors that are like that, where they'll write one book that I really, really like, and then they'll write a whole bunch of other books that maybe I don't like as well. That happens all the time. And that's because lots of things go into writing a book. It's not just a story or an outline or characters. A lot of it has to do with where the author happens to be in their life.
Sure.
Maybe they're in a different place. Maybe they're more comfortable or less comfortable, and that is a direct impact on how they write and what they write. So there's a whole lot of other factors than just sitting and plucking keys on a keyboard or writing down words in a notebook.
Yeah.
There's a lot more that goes into it. Now, one of the things, I've been looking at several blog posts about, and articles and that sort of thing, about the Veronica Roth situation. This one here, I just wanted to read a couple of things because they pulled off tweets from other authors who were speaking up to her defense. And I just really liked what they said, and mostly because I really like these two authors. One of them is John Green, who I adore. And so he wrote several tweets. One is, fascinating to see responses to Allegiant because I think many of the book's readers are just wrong about what books are/should do. The next one, as a reader, I don't feel a story has an obligation to make me happy. I want stories to show me a bigger world than the one I know. I never read the Divergent trilogy as escapist. Who would want to escape our world for that one? Which is precisely what I love about it. Similarly, I never felt like my faith as a reader was betrayed by the Hunger Games or the Uglies books. I've never read the Uglies books, but I think they're dystopian too. And his final thought was, basically, I would argue that books are not primarily in the wish fulfillment business. Okay? Rant over. And that is, to me, is a very good point. The author does not have the responsibility of making you happy.
No.
That's not really their job.
I mean, yeah.
They want to entertain you.
Yes, and in a way, you want your readers to be happy. You want them to enjoy your work, but you don't want to be. I hate to use the word sellout. You don't want to be a sellout and just write commercially just to have fans.
Yeah, just to give the people what they want, and in the process produce kind of a crappy book.
Yeah, that's so not the point of being an author.
No.
You don't do it because you want to have fans and make money. You do it because you have a story that you want to tell and you want other people to read it.
Yeah, you don't go into the author business to make money. Not anymore. If you want to make money, go be a lawyer or a doctor.
A lot of people don't understand. They see these successful best-selling authors and they think, well, they've got it easy.
No, most of them also have a day job, at least part-time.
Yeah, and if they don't, because at this point, Mercedes Lackey, she writes full-time.
Mm-hmm.
That's all she does. But she says, it's a full-time job. I sit at my computer for 8 hours every day and write.
Right. And that takes a lot of discipline.
And that takes a lot of energy.
Yeah.
And most people don't realize that.
Because
you're not up running around doing physical labor does not mean that it can't make you tired. Because anything creative like that you put a part of yourself in, if you're actually writing because it's your passion and not because you just want to make a quick buck, then it takes a lot out of you when you do it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's especially because for the most part, you're dealing with a lot of emotional connection. I mean, you think that when you read books that you get an emotional attachment to the characters? How do you think the author feels?
Yeah.
I remember certain interviews with J.K. Rowling when she was writing the Harry Potter series when she was talking about, oh, I don't remember which death it was now. I think it might have been Sirius. And she said that once she finished writing his death and the scene that kind of followed it, she said that she had to step back for a little bit and take a break because it just completely wiped her out, and she was devastated, but she knew that it had to happen for the story that she wanted to tell.
Yeah.
But one more quick response from another author that I adore who is speaking out on Veronica Roth's behalf, because it's coming from Maureen Johnson, and you know I also adore her. So she said on Twitter, "From what I've read, people were shocked. Fine. And some said, ah, fine. And some were like, you cannot do this. It is not allowed. Huh?" The next one, "Listen to Auntie MJ, who loves you. If you think sending a death threat is venting, I may have to come over there and speak to you." And then she continues, "Just because it's online doesn't make it okay. Nor is it okay if you're a teen. I respect teens too much for that. You know better. The discussion about sad endings is different. Sad endings, totally allowed. Feel whatever you want, but they are allowed. It's actually very good to not always get what we want." I love her. She's so funny.
Yeah.
I'm saying, listen to your Auntie MJ who loves you.
I like that. I may have to come speak to you.
I might have to come speak to you. Oh gosh, do you follow her on Twitter?
I do, but I actually don't get on Twitter that often. So.
She is so much fun to follow on Twitter. She has said many times that's where she lives. She doesn't live in like New York, or actually I think she might be living in London now because she's been writing a lot over there, but she's like, I live on Twitter. That's where I live. That's where you'll find me most of the time. But again, this is another issue, because I know we're going to talk about a couple of other authors who have had similar situations in the past, but I think now, given the type of technology that we deal with and all of the different outlets where you can talk about things online, I think that that's part of what's made the problem a little bit worse because it's so easy.
Right.
And I wrote my own blog post about this this past week, because, and not because everybody else hasn't been writing about it either. I just wanted to put my 2 cents in because when you have a blog, that's what you do. That's why we're doing this. But when she says that just because it's online doesn't make it okay. Because of how anonymous the internet makes everything now, I don't think very many people would walk up to Veronica Roth on the street, no matter how much they said that they were going to, punch her in the face or whatever. I don't think many of the people who are talking on Twitter and on Tumblr and on wherever else they're talking, I don't think very many of them would actually walk up to her in person and say the things that they're saying online.
Right.
Because when you're online, you're talking to a Twitter feed. You're not talking to a person, or at least you don't think about it as being a person.
And a lot of people don't think they don't realize that a lot of these authors, especially in this day and age when publishing has reached the point that it has, and a lot of these authors actually run their own Twitters.
Well, I know Maureen does.
Yeah,
I know John does, and Veronica does too.
And there's a lot of them that do that now. At one time in the world of the internet, websites, Facebook pages, things like Twitter and stuff, they were run by assistants. They weren't actually done by the author themselves.
Right.
But nowadays, it's actually the author you're interacting with.
Mm-hmm. And they're real people.
Yeah. And I know a lot of it is that knee-jerk reaction that this author did something to hurt you because they killed off your favorite character or they didn't give you the ending you wanted, and your retaliation is to try to make them feel something like the way you felt when they did this in the book. And that's why they say things like, I would punch you in the face, or I would, you should die, because they want to give them that feeling in their gut like they experienced when they read the book. But that's not okay.
Right. No, it's really not. I'm not going to quote anything from it just because there are a ton of spoilers, but I might put the link in our show notes. Veronica Roth did write a response to a lot of this stuff. And you can agree with her or disagree with her. Again, that's your choice. But she's basically saying, this is why I made the choices that I made. And to me, they felt like the right way that this story should go, and it is my story. And that's just, that's the way it is. Because, and this is the thing, no matter how connected we feel to the story and how much we feel like it's a part of us. I mean, I get that. I've mentioned many times the different books and series that I have read where I just felt like it was like part of me. Harry Potter was like that. The Bulgariad was like that. I mean, there's several of them. But in the end, it doesn't belong to us. Not really.
Mm-mm.
It's the creative property of the author. And it is their choice what they do with it. It is their choice how they respond to it. Everything about it is up to them, and it's not their responsibility to cave to anybody's demands because it's what they have chosen. Now we're going to talk about a couple of other instances too. And this one that I wanted to mention happens. The blog post where I'm reading about it from was in April and May of 2013, so a little bit earlier this year. And this was something that somebody did to, what was her name? The Sookie Stackhouse author, Charlaine Harris.
Charlaine Harris.
Yes. This happened when Dead Ever After came out, which, that's the final book in that series. There was a reader in Germany, I want to say, who ended up getting an early copy. Now, I don't know whether she got an ARC or whether she stole it somehow. I don't know. That's not the issue. I don't really care how she got it. But she read it, and she hated it. So all she did, she started copying out stuff about the ending and posting it all over the internet, and posted spoilers everywhere, like all over fan sites, all over Twitter, all over Facebook, all over it. And this was before the book actually came out because she got it early. I'm guessing it's a she. I don't know. We don't know the name or anything. But so basically, before the book even came out, there were tons of spoilers and actual big blocks of text from the book that were everywhere. Because she hated the book so much, she wanted to ruin it for everybody.
That's also not okay.
I mean, really? That's just, I don't understand it. Again, it's one of those things, it's perfectly okay if you didn't like the end of the book. That's fine. You are allowed to not like something. But it's also most likely not going to just be the only opinion that's out there. A lot of people are going to like it because a lot of people like this author, and a lot of people like Veronica Roth. And then there's people like me who, like her and liked the final book, even though I didn't think it was the best of her work. Still was a good book. Wasn't a bad book.
Well, everybody's different. People like different things. What you hate, somebody's going to love.
Right. But this particular person, now at least they weren't being threatening, which I guess is better. I don't know. Because, I don't know, it's, instead of really trying to attack the author personally, it was more like she was attacking the other fans along with it, right. Trying to ruin the experience for them. And after this happened, Charlaine Harris went on Facebook and posted the following post about what's been going on. By now, some of you know that a reader in Germany obtained a copy of Death Ever After and decided to post the ending online. While this is unfortunate, I wanted to say this to all of you. Even if you personally are unhappy with the ending, please don't spoil it for the other readers. Ever After goes on sale on May 4th. After that date, you are more than welcome to come here and tell me how much you like or don't like the choices I've made for Suki. But from one Suki fan to another, I'm asking you all to please not spoil the book for the other readers. And there were a ton, according to this article where I'm getting this, they didn't post the comments that came after that because there was over 1,600 of them.
Yeah.
But apparently there were some pretty nasty ones.
Yeah, I remember reading about all this when it happened. I mean, it's just, people are crazy. That's the only conclusion I can come to. And they don't understand, that boundaries thing, the internet makes it a lot easier to forget where those boundaries are.
Right.
Because so much of our lives are spent online now, you forget that there are things you just don't do. I don't know. I would never in a million years, if I read something by an author that I didn't care for, which I have done several times. I mean, and it's very rare that I find a book that I don't finish. But the last book that I couldn't finish, I just didn't care for it. Did I send death threats to the author? No. Did I want to hit the author? No. Did I even get online and find her on Twitter or Facebook or anything like that and tell her that I did not enjoy her book? No, because it just wasn't that important to me. Because I didn't enjoy the book. So what?
Yeah, it happens.
It happens. I mean, if it was a book that I was in a series that I was emotionally invested in, yes, I would probably get online. I might find the author on Twitter or Facebook or a comment section on their website, and I might say, hey, look, I didn't care for the direction you went with this, otherwise I love your series, yada yada. I'm not going to say you're a hack and you shouldn't be allowed to write books, or I want to punch you in the face, or you should die, or any of these things, because that's not okay.
No, it's really not. And and just looking at I'm still looking at a lot of the stuff with Veronica because there's so much of it out there right now. And one person said that the only reason she made the choices that she did was that she was trying to be bold and edgy, and because she broke one of the cardinal rules of fiction writing, which I'm not sure what that is. If it's what I think that they're talking about, then I've seen other authors do it before, and it leaves a mark, sure, but again, that's their choice. These characters belong to them, ultimately.
Yes.
Not to us. And they can do whatever they want. Although I do like in this one particular thing, somebody actually did decide to say something to Veronica Roth to her face because they were at a signing, and they said something about that they were really, really upset about Allegiant, and her response was, maybe you should get some ice cream and feel better. I like that. It's good advice too, hey. Ice cream will help cure a lot of things.
It will.
But I did want to the other author who's gone through a lot of this is we had mentioned her briefly before, was Mercedes Lackey. And you know more about this situation than I do, because this is really taking it to an extreme.
Yeah.
This is even worse than the Veronica Roth situation, which is pretty bad.
Okay, I got into Mercedes Lackey years ago when she had only written maybe 5 or 6 of her Heralds of Aldemar books.
Mm-hmm.
So this was a while back. And this was in the beginnings of the internet age. Some of us are at an age where we remember when the whole internet craze started, when it became the norm. That's something to tell your kids about. Kids, I remember when there wasn't an internet.
I know. Our parents would be laughing at us right now.
Yes, they would. But I discovered Mercedes Lackey's website, which, nowadays you don't think twice about, oh, I like this author, let me go find their website.
Yeah, it's just a thing you do.
Yeah, that's just part and parcel of the whole being a reader thing. Back then, it wasn't so common. Well, I found her website, and at the time, the only books, I had only read, these Heralds of Aldemar books. I didn't really know anything about her other work. Well, I found her website, and on her website was this thing she posted called The Last Straw. And basically what this is about is she wrote a trilogy. It's the Diana Tregarde series, and they're paranormal fiction, which, again, is a lot more common now than it was back then.
Right.
I mean, paranormal fiction is the buzzword these days.
Yeah, it's not so paranormal. Now it's kind of normal.
Yeah, it's now you have with the shows like Supernatural and now Sleepy Hollow and stuff like that. It's become mainstream. But back then it wasn't. And she wrote this book, and it's about this witch named Diana Tregarde, and she's this thing called a guardian, which basically, they're sort of a supernatural police force type thing. She got a lot of crap about these books. The crazies really came out of the woodwork.
Now, have you read these?
Yes, I have,
okay.
Actually. I own them. It took me a while to track them down because they were out of print. After this stuff happened, she stopped writing them and they quit printing them. This is what happens when you go too crazy on an author. If you like the books, then, well, you're out of luck because the crazies ruined it for you.
Mm-hmm.
She had plans to write more of them originally, I do believe. She, in this article it says, take for instance the undeniable fact that I haven't written and at this point don't intend to write any more of them. Why? They don't sell. And she's like, some people would decide that there was an evil force out there preventing the sale of their glorious books and determined to thwart that force and prove how wonderful the unpopular books are. But hey, call me nutty. I believe that people are trying to tell you something when they don't buy a book, and that is they don't want them. But the biggest problem with this, like I said, the crazies came out and they were convinced that that Mercedes Lackey herself was actually, that the Guardians were real. Mercedes Lackey was one. And because she was sitting back and not fixing all these problems in the world, that, she needed to be killed or whatever. That's why her and her husband stopped going to fan conventions, because they were getting these death threats, and finally it came to the point where it was posted. One of Mercedes Lackey's close friends ran Firebird Arts and Music, which is where you can buy the filk music that's based on the songs in Mercedes Lackey's books.
Mm-hmm.
I highly suggest, if you're a Mercedes Lackey fan, you check out the music that goes with them. They're really awesome. That what bothered Mercedes Lackey more than the possibility of her or her husband getting hurt was the idea that they could go to these conventions or these book signings and that one of their fans might be hurt.
Right.
And
that's because they are nice and thoughtful and rational people who actually think about other people.
Yeah. And here's the relevant part. There was a real life tragedy that ended in murder-suicide and nearly ended up as a double murder-suicide. The incident started when Misty and her husband Larry Dixon sheltered a woman escaping a bad marriage and her child. This episode included pipe bombs, people, not just the woman's ex-husband, keeping Misty's house under surveillance, people with high-powered rifles being run off the property in the middle of the night, police that would not take the threats seriously, an unresponsive legal system, and a judge with attitudes firmly rooted in the Neolithic age. The nutcase involved tried to kill his ex-wife and the people trying to help her. He only managed to kill his 2-year-old daughter and then shoot himself. This was done on a court-ordered visitation despite everything that Misty and Larry and the mother and the lawyers could do. And then there were the pagans. Once the Diana Tregarde books were published, every pagan nut, please note the nut applies to specific pagans, not to all pagans, with an axe to grind, decided that the portrayal of magic in the books was not correct. Some of these people did not take no for an answer, and when their dearly held beliefs were not accepted and enshrined in the Diana Tregarde books, they got nasty, big time nasty. Death threats, curses, hate mail directed at Misty. Once it was clear that these avenues were blocked, or at least ineffective, some enterprising souls started going after people close to Misty. They tried to get to her through Larry, Firebird, family, and friends. And it says that the problem is not science fiction fans or pagans. The problem is with people who have boundary problems.
Well, yeah.
When this had all been posted about after a latest death threat, and now this has all been years ago, and they had gotten another death threat, probably over the Diana Tregarde books, and like I said, that's when they stopped going to conventions. They stopped having book signings. They stopped making public appearances because it got so bad. I mean, it actually got to the point where, like I said, people are having to be run off their property. I mean, they live in Oklahoma in a geodesic dome. It's not a hard thing to find.
Right.
So, I mean, these people were hunting her up, and like I said, this is pre-internet when there wasn't as much anonymity to it. You couldn't just, Twitter didn't exist. I don't even think Facebook existed when this all happened.
No, I was looking to see the Diana Tregarde books came out. There's 3 of them, right?
Yes.
In 1989, 1990, and 1991.
Right.
So
late 80s, early 90s area. So, things like MySpace and Facebook and Twitter didn't really exist.
No.
Forum websites like the Malorian Tavern didn't really exist. Back then you had things like news groups is what you had back then.
Yeah.
And internet that made screeching sounds when you connected to it. I mean, it wasn't as easy as it is now to go on and bluster and say things you don't really mean because it's just a post on the internet.
Right.
This was actually people put in danger. People, a 2-year-old girl was killed. That's ridiculous.
And all because of a work of fiction. Yes.
Here's the key word, people. Fiction. Fiction. That means it's not real.
Yeah,
I love the quote from Mercedes Lackey. Reality check time, people. Here's a whole roll of quarters. There's the clue machine. Go buy some.
Yeah, I love her whole post, The Final Straw, because you can just tell she's so fed up with this whole situation. And Veronica Roth's response to all of the stuff. Now, her situation is nowhere near as serious as Mercedes Lackey's ended up being. But, her blog post is being very, not understanding, but just saying, this is why this happened, and this is why I made the decisions that I did, and this is, I appreciate if you didn't like it, but I'm, this is why I did it, and this is what's out there, and this is the way it is. But Mercedes Lackey is just not even, you can just tell she's so done with the situation. And obviously there was good reasons for that. But yeah, we're going to have a lot of stuff up on the show notes. We're going to include Veronica Roth's post, and we're also going to have this message from Mercedes Lackey. Because
which I would like to note is I couldn't find it actually on her website anymore. There is another response to it that's still on her website that I need to find the link to. But this is posted on somewhere else. It's hosted. But this is actually it. I read it several times back when I first found it. And this is the same thing that was on her website. So it may not say mercedeslackey.com, but we promise this is the actual article.
This is her. Yeah, I particularly love these books are entertainment only, people. I'm not running a recruitment bureau here. And if
Yeah.
you want a book featuring your favorite brand of religion, you go out and write and try and sell one, and good luck, and don't let the door hit you on the way out.
Yeah, I love her.
She's, gosh, I mean, like I said, she's not pulling any punches. She is telling it like it is, and very bluntly, and I don't think she really cared what people thought about it.
Well, no, I mean, the first line of it is, this is going to offend some people, and these are the people who most need to read this.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the line, if there really were guardians, you'd see panicky skinheads buying up the Rogaine supply like the KKK at a white sale.
Yeah. Like, we're writers. We write fiction, which is, by definition, not fact. Creative and entertaining lies, if you will, but still not truth by any kind of stretch of the imagination.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, she says a lot of things that people probably do need to read.
Yeah. And it's definitely worth reading, even if you're not one of the crazies.
Yeah, or even if you're not, I mean, if you haven't read Mercedes Lackey, or if you're not a fan of hers, again, it's really, it's really good.
Yeah, it's worth reading. But see, like I said, I have read the Diana Tregarde books. It took me a long time to track them all down because they were out of print. But I finally did track them all down, and I read them, and they weren't bad. They were it was kind of different for a series because usually if you have a trilogy, then the events in the books kind of flow in a direct line, and one takes place right after the other. But these are sort of spaced out in time, and they really have nothing. They are only loosely tied to each other, which was kind of strange.
Huh.
But then a few years ago, they decided to re-release them. I guess to see, since, this whole horror and supernatural paranormal stuff was becoming more mainstream, to see if they would sell any better. And see if the crazies went away, I guess.
Well, yeah, maybe now that they're used to seeing all of this stuff, maybe there's not going to be as much of a
backlash
or crazy response.
Yeah. So they released them as an omnibus, and I ordered it from the Science Fiction Book Club. So I have the actual paperbacks that were originally printed, and I have the reprinted omnibus.
Do we know if she's gotten any kind of response from it? Has she said anything?
I haven't seen anything else about it. I haven't heard that there's been, these crazy people coming out. Oh my God, you're a guardian. I want to be a guardian. Please recruit me to be a guardian. Oh my God, you're a guardian. You must die. I haven't heard anything about there being anything like that.
Okay, well that's good at least. Maybe, I mean, like you said, this kind of thing isn't as uncommon now. I mean, if you're talking about something that's kind of a paranormal police force sort of thing, I mean, that kind of sounds like Shadowhunters in a way. Kind of. Well, they're hunting demons, but still they're also keeping track of other supernatural critters. So it's not as uncommon a thing out there anymore. So maybe that's part of it.
Yeah. Okay, I just found out all of this stuff happened like in the late 90s. The second thing she posted, the first essay was called The Last Straw, and then this one that's actually still on her website is called The Camel's Back. And this is where she says, we're not going to any conventions anymore because the organizer of the last one they went to thought they were being hysterical and wouldn't do anything, and one of their people was actually attacked and hurt. And the organizer denies all responsibility and accused the person who was attacked of lying.
Oh, great.
Yeah, and she's like, given that treatment, it isn't worth it for us to take those risks anymore, and we're sorry that the fans have to suffer.
I don't blame them, though.
And this was posted, it says, this is not to say that some other lunatic won't come out of the woodwork. And she says, the closer we approach to the year 2000, the more the lunatics seem to be emerging. So, this was all took place in, like, the 90s.
And then you had all the Y2K crazies that were coming out, too. That probably didn't help matters.
Probably not.
Yeah. So, but yeah, if you'll send me a link to The Camel's Back, I'll post that one, too.
I can do that.
Okay. But anyway, I think we're probably going to go ahead and wrap this up. The the final gist for basically what we wanted to say is, like we've said several times now, you can like books, you can dislike books. If you don't like a book, you know what? There are thousands upon thousands of them out there. Go find something else to read that maybe you'll like better. You are perfectly within your rights to dislike something, because we all have different opinions. We all have different likes and dislikes and, what have you. But there is absolutely no reason, whether online, whether in person, whether, I don't know how else. I mean, do people send letters anymore? Maybe some of them do. But however you do it, there is no reason to go after an author. Because all they're doing is trying to tell a story. And, maybe make a couple of bucks. Because that's their job. It's business. And it is not their job to just try and make you happy.
Yeah. Their job is to tell their story. And yeah, it's great if the fans are happy, because you want your fans to continue reading your books. But that's not why you write them. Or it shouldn't be. I mean, there are people who write just to cater to the fans' feelings and just to make money. And, if that's how you do it, then fine. But a real author who writes because they can't not write, they're not doing it for everybody else. They're doing it for themselves. And if somebody else happens to enjoy it, well, that's great.
Right.
If somebody wants to pay money and buy it and, help support their life as an author, then that's great too. But you have to think of all of the things an author publishes. How many things do they write that goes unpublished?
Right, a bunch of stuff usually.
Yeah. Because they didn't necessarily write it for public consumption. They wrote it because they had to. Because it was there and they had to tell, that was a story they had to tell. So, I mean, you can't expect them to only write what the fans want. That's not how this works. It's not their job to tell the story you want. If there's a story that you want and nobody's writing it, write it yourself. And then when you write your own story, you see how you feel when somebody starts saying these things to you.
Right. Because writing a book is really, really hard.
Yes.
And you pour a lot of yourself and your life into that book in order to make it become a real story that people can read. And, I mean, basically all it boils down to is, the golden rule. Don't treat people unless, treat people the way that you want to be treated. Just be nice. And if you're going to complain, do it in a nice, constructive way.
Right.
That's all we're saying. That's all we want. Is that so hard?
Be, mature.
Yes. Don't be a jerk.
Unfortunately, most people are jerks.
Well, I don't want to say that. Let's just say
a lot of people are jerks.
There's a lot of people who are jerks. I don't want to think that most of them. I think that just a lot of the people who are really nice don't get out there and say things. Like if they hadn't had this whole big thing about the backlash about Allegiant, I probably wouldn't have even mentioned that much. I'm going to say, yeah, I read it and I liked it. It was good. And I would have moved on. But because there's all of this stuff going on, it's like, then I feel like there's so many people who say bad things. It's like you want to increase the proportion of good things that are going out there. So, and actually Veronica is going to be at this thing in Charleston that I'm going to. So it's like, I just want to bring her a cupcake. Yeah. Except with all the crazy people that are out there, she probably wouldn't eat it because she'd think that I did something to it, and that's just unfortunate, really.
Yeah.
But just be nice, be pleasant, be mature, have manners. Yeah. Which may not be valued as much as they used to be, but don't act like this. There's no reason for it.
There's really not.
Because all you're doing, you know what? The end of the book that you really, really hated, it's still out there. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah,
so
it's not going to change.
Yeah, all of your blathering is basically going to not do anything. If you really didn't like it, go and write fan fiction. Make up your own ending that you like better.
Yeah.
Or, go on to fanfiction.net. There's probably people who've already done it.
There you go.
But all you're doing is taking somebody, in this case, a 25-year-old girl who has put several years of work and effort into trying to give you something to enjoy. All you're doing is making her sad. And because a lot of this is coming from people who are supposedly fans of her work. And I use air quotes when I say fans.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that is our final word on this. Just be nice. Just, don't be an idiot. And there you go. So, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Remember, next week, no show. And again, I apologize. It's all my fault.
Well, like I said, it's not entirely your fault. It's just that your busy schedule was not compatible with my work schedule.
Yeah. But anyway, so we will be back the week after, which is, what day is that? That would be on this one's coming out on the 3rd. The 10th is when I'll be gone, so our next episode will be on the 17th. And we will be talking about The Girl in the Steel Corset by Katie Cross. So read that book and join us on the 17th and tell us what you thought about it.
Yeah, you've got 2 weeks to read it, surely.
Yeah, we're giving you plenty of time this time. We're not expecting you to read 7 books in 1 week because we got an ARC.
Sorry.
I'm never going to let you live that one down. Sorry.
I know.
Because you've done it to me twice.
We should, once we actually, sit down and make a schedule again.
Yeah.
At least post what books we're going to be reading and when we're going to be discussing them on our website, so if somebody does want to, they have enough advance notice that they can do that instead of, oh, hey, next week.
Yeah, we should do that. That's an excellent idea. We'll work on that.
This is, of course, assuming we actually, sit down and come up with a new schedule.
Well, we did one time and it worked. Maybe we'll do it again. So, yeah, we'll work on that while we're out on our brief week-long hiatus. So, if there's any topics you'd like us to cover, you're welcome to let us know. We are open to all suggestions. We like suggestions. So you can send us those suggestions. You can email us at bibliophiles.podcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on Twitter. We are at BibAnonPodcast. You can also leave us comments on this topic or any other topic over on our official website, www.bibliophiles-anonymous.com. So yeah, topic suggestions, and also let us know what you thought about the whole situation, either with Veronica Roth or with other authors that you know have had this sort of situation. If you're going to talk about Veronica or Allegiant, please don't post spoilers in the comments. Give that a few weeks at least so that the people who want to read the book can get to it. Any comment that has any kind of spoilers for Allegiant will not be allowed to post because we have to, moderate those. So just so you know. But anyway, other than that, we will see you in 2 weeks.
Yep.
So until then, bye.
Bye.